Panera's digital-only restaurant, underground delivery, and is Sous Vide the answer to virtual brand success? That's all ahead on this week's Monday Minute. Monday Minute works like this. We're going to ask each other 5 questions about 5 headlines that have affected the world of restaurants, off-premise, and restaurant technology that in some way relate back to our book, Delivering the Digital Restaurant. Are you ready? Let's go. All right, Meredith, we're here together in person this week. Hi.
Very exciting.
It's
Yeah.
a bit different for our audience, but we've got some interesting articles to talk about. The first one is something wonderful. It's about a company called Wonder that has got $350 million worth of funding, and it has, 9 restaurants at the moment?
It has 19 trucks. So there's a
19.
lot of fascinating things about this. For those of you who have not heard of Wonder, their mission is to bring what I would call urban quality restaurants to a suburban lifestyle. And they do that by loading dishes into vans that are then cooked in transit / on site. And they currently have 19 of these food trucks bringing delivery and cooking at the same time to people around New Jersey, and got $350 million in funding. Of course, this is on top of all the funding they've already received, which is absolutely incredible. For anyone who has 19 food trucks out there, you might be wondering, how could that possibly justify a $350 million investment?
Good to tell us.
I think that is a tough question. First of all, if you just have a bunch of food trucks out there, you're not going to get that. So I hate to destroy any dreams, but just to set some realistic expectations. The first thing is, of course, this is all technology enabled. But secondly, and probably more importantly, this is a company that is got Mark Lohr, CEO, at the helm. And Mark has had a very successful track record in starting companies and then selling them to strategics who need them. Most recently, Jet to Walmart, which became Walmart.com and enabled them to compete successfully with Amazon. So I think a lot of what's going on here when we look at an outsized valuation like that is just the trust that investors have in someone like Mark to not only set forth a really cool vision, but to execute and bring it to life. Okay, Carl, next question is for you. Cuisine Solutions just took on $250 million from folks like Bain Ventures, which is very interesting to me. They are known as the largest sous vide company in the world.
Well, first of all, $250 million, and I thought the capital markets are drying up, right? And we've got $350 million with Wonder, $250 with this. Clearly, the world is good. But you ask about sous vide. Do you know what this thing is? Look at this. It looks a little ominous, doesn't it? This is an Anova, to talk about the brand, but it's an Anova sous vide machine. And it's very much something that I love using on a weekly basis at home to sous vide my cooking. And really what you do is you vacuum seal various different foods, proteins, vegetables. And from that, you're able to cook it at a certain temperature consistently over a period of time to create a great consistency. And companies like Starbucks have been doing this for a while with their sous vide egg bites. You've got companies like Costco and Target using this for a number of their items on the retail shelves, where they're selling these items in a way that allows a consumer to have a great quality item, but actually minimal prep on their side. So why are we bringing this to the Monday Minute this week? This company has clearly been getting some great traction. They're growing all across the world. And this venture fund here is going to really help them get to a place where they're going to be advanced supply chains for now restaurants as well as the grocery stores. And when we think about this then from the standpoint of virtual brands, you can almost imagine how sous vide packaged items are going to make it super simple for restaurants to be able to add these type of items onto a virtual brand menu and make it super simple as a result to be able to service them without creating added complexity into the mix.
Now, of course, at a commercial scale, the machines look a little bit different, but it's a fantastic cooking approach that, as Carl said, really results in a lot of consistency. And some restaurants, as he said, are already using it. Notably, I think of people like Starbucks and probably the original Taco Bell. As this supply chain really gets very developed, you can see that the cost of sous vide are going to come down. It's going to make sense to do in more and more restaurants. And this will enable what we often talk about, which is electric-based cooking methods that are semi to fully automated. So very exciting.
Okay, our third question this week is something about Panera. They are talking about the digital-only restaurant and something they're very excited about, which is a term that we're hearing more about. Tell us about what they're up to.
Yeah, so Panera's opened a digital-only restaurant in Chicago. They're testing this footprint to put into urban location that maybe can't accommodate their full brand expression. That usually has a lot of seats, is very third placey like Starbucks, and often has a drive-through. In urban environments, that doesn't make sense. And it doesn't make sense not just because the real estate's so expensive, but also because consumers don't really use it. And a fascinating fact in this article was 81% of their sales are off-premise sales, right? So people are not consuming that food in-house, whether they're getting takeout or catering or delivery or curbside pickup, whatever they're doing with the food to get it out of the restaurant, 81% of the time they're doing it, which I think is quite amazing. And so as you think about asset development and figuring out an asset that makes sense for an environment, yes, that is very high cost real estate, but also in which consumers don't really value sitting inside the restaurant, you come up with something like this digital only store. They're not the first to be testing this, certainly. We've got Chick-fil-A out there doing that, and I think we'll see others, but it is a big step by a big national chain into this space.
They are truly delivering the digital restaurant. Good for them.
Next question for you, Carl. This is a very Carl question about a pipe dream. I don't even understand this one. Honestly, when I read the article, it made no sense to me because it does seem so out there and so future-y. So can you talk a little bit about how we would use tubes and pipes to deliver things like burritos?
Yes, my thinking on this one is there's that wonderful line at the end of Back to the Future when the doc says to Marty McFly, "Where we're going, we don't need roads." Remember that? And he flies off into the horizon. In this sense, when we talk about delivery, maybe we don't need roads. Maybe we can actually deliver underground. And so Pipedream is a concept, a startup. It's very early stages, you can imagine. But they're talking about delivering burritos through 12-inch tubes, for all intents and purposes, utilizing these little robots, which are like RC cars, if you will, that actually deliver things in what they hope within 10 years will be within a 30-second period. It's crazy. Now, guess what? This isn't the first time we've come across this. We actually had one of our interviewees in the book say, can you imagine a world where one day where your food is delivered through some form of tunnel into the person's home? The exciting thing about this whole concept is they want to try it, and they're going to be looking at perhaps markets or cities like Austin, maybe places like Dallas and Phoenix, ones where density is really important. And the reason why density is really important is they are forecasting this to cost something like 6 figures for every mile of tubing. So this is a huge infrastructure play, clearly. But the other side of this, which I thought was fascinating, was it's more than just food. So he talks about the way in which the subscription economy could become part of this. And the example in the podcast that I really thought was quite intriguing was he saying, how often do you use a screwdriver? And so why do I have to hold on and store a screwdriver in my house when actually I could have something delivered to me very quickly, I use it, and then away it goes again. In much the same way as we used to have VHS and CDs in our homes, and now we don't, we just stream them. And so the idea of being able to have this hyperlogistics functionality is something that is particularly intriguing. Is it a pipe dream? Time will tell. All right, a last question this week. I think this is another really interesting one for us, Meredith, but for me, Deliver Before and Skipcart have come together in this partnership where they're trying to be able to help restaurants have a wider access to a fleet of vehicles. Tell us about this partnership.
The main purpose of this is to try to give additional avenues to the consumer from the restaurant to the consumer. Right now, it can feel to a lot of restaurants like the only path to get there is through the third parties. And even if they're doing first party ordering on the back end as it gets delivered, they're typically going through Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, the usual suspects. So what this partnership does is enable a different path to get to the consumer. The company is already delivering for Walmart, and so they have a big fleet out there already at scale. Gives another avenue, again, for restaurants to get to that consumer without necessarily either acquiring them via the third parties or then fulfilling on the back end through the third parties. To me, what this speaks to is just a huge desire on the part of restaurants to be able to take ownership and control over their customer experience, over the customer data, and frankly, not having to pay that acquisition cost every single time. Marketplaces are fantastic for acquiring new customers, but acquiring them over and over again probably doesn't make a lot of sense. That means that restaurants need a different way to be able to get to restaurants. Now, will they have as big of scale as, say, someone like DoorDash who offers a product like this through their DoorDash Drive? I don't know, but they claim that it is $2 cheaper than other delivery methods.
Ultimately, it's about getting the food to the customer fastest, and being able to have access to a wider group of vehicles is obviously going to help in that regard. And so, if the technology can help prioritize the cheapest form of logistics, happy days. Okay, so thanks for listening, everyone. Hopefully, you've enjoyed this week's edition. If you've got any questions, any comments, anything you agree with or disagree with, please leave them below in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. But until next time, thanks for listening, and see you again soon. The Monday Minute is available for you to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. Watch us on YouTube and follow us on all our social media Learn.Delivery channels. Thanks for listening.